My earliest memories are snapshots tinged with a melancholic blue. Dad, a figure in a faded photograph tucked away in a dusty album, left before I turned 5. Mom, Anna, became a storm cloud hovering over our tiny apartment. One moment, she'd be frantically scrubbing the kitchen floor, muttering about starting fresh. The next, she'd scoop me into a crushing hug, her grip so tight it left me breathless. These suffocating embraces, though infrequent, were the only displays of affection I craved. Mostly, I was a small shadow trailing behind her. She'd flit about the apartment, her face etched with a worry that seemed to have a life of its own. Sometimes, when the worry lines deepened and her brow furrowed, she'd leave me with Mrs. Rodriguez downstairs. When Mom finally returned, the tension would crackle in the air like static electricity. She'd ruffle my hair with a distracted sigh, a gesture that felt more obligatory than loving. Then, a fleeting smile would flicker across her face, a glimpse of the warmth I desperately craved. Mom started dating again. Alex, a man with eyes that crinkled at the corners when he laughed, entered our lives. Unlike the whirlwind that was Mom, he moved with a gentle calm. He treated me with a kindness that felt foreign in our tense household. One day, after a particularly humiliating incident with Jessica Miller and her posse at school, I found myself clinging to him on the couch, tears blurring my vision. Why do they always pick on me? I mumbled into his shirt, the familiar ache of loneliness constricting my chest. He knelt before me, his eyes reflecting a concern I wasn't used to seeing from adults. They pick on you because they're insecure, he said softly, wiping away a stray tear. They want to feel powerful by making others feel small. His words were a balm to my wounded spirit. In that moment, a flicker of hope ignited within me. Maybe, just maybe, things were starting to look up. But hope, in my world, was a fragile butterfly, easily crushed. Then came Lily. A tiny bundle of joy with eyes that mirrored Mom's. She arrived a year later. Suddenly, I wasn't the center of attention anymore. All the warmth, all the affection, seemed to evaporate, replaced by a cold indifference. Mom's focus shifted entirely to Lily, leaving me to navigate the confusing world of childhood alone. 14. Awkward braces, a permanent frizz halo around my head, and a knot of insecurity the size of Texas, tightening in my gut. It was also the age when my mom's negativity towards me bloomed into a full-blown weed garden. Take picture day at school. Mom took the day off work to fuss over Lily's pigtails and pick out the perfect sparkly dress. When it came to my turn, a sigh escaped her lips as she rummaged through my closet. "Ugh, nothing decent in here," she muttered. Of course, when picture day arrived, Lily looked like a little princess, and I resembled a rumpled dandelion compared to her sunflower. Mom cooed over Lily's photo, while mine got a cursory glance and a dismissive grunt. Alex, bless his kind heart, tried to be the positive voice in my life. He'd take me shopping sometimes, helping me pick out clothes that actually fit and flattered me. One day, after a particularly frustrating day with Mom, I found myself clinging to him, the need for comfort overwhelming. "Dad," the word slipped out before I could stop it. He froze, then a pained expression crossed his face. Mom appeared in the doorway, her eyes blazing. "You have one father, Elena," she hissed, her voice laced with venom. "And trust me, he deserves you." Her words stung like a slap. Alex, sensing the tension, ruffled my hair awkwardly. "Look, it's okay," he mumbled. "It's not okay," I choked out, tears welling up in my eyes. Lily, who had been watching the whole scene unfold with a smug expression, suddenly piped up. "Elena's been bad again, Daddy. She took my candy without asking." 16. The land of first crushes, awkward dances, and a constant knot of nerves in my stomach. Dating, however, was a minefield in my house. Mom had a knack for sabotaging any potential romance before it even sprouted legs. Take Mark, for example. Tall, funny, and with a smile that could melt glaciers, he was everything a teenage girl could dream of. After weeks of nervous texts and stolen glances, I finally gathered the courage to ask him out. He said yes. Excitement bubbled in my chest, a feeling quickly replaced with dread at the thought of him meeting Mom. The night of our date, Mom went into overdrive. She fussed over Lily's bedtime story, making sure it stretched on for an eternity. When Mark finally arrived, looking nervous but sweet, Mom greeted him with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Elena never cleans her room," she announced casually, as if discussing the weather. "You might find socks and pizza boxes under that mountain of clothes." My cheeks burned like they were on fire. Mark gave a nervous chuckle, but the awkward silence stretched like a bad joke. The rest of the evening was a disaster. Mom kept making snide remarks about my weight, my taste in music, even my choice of college. By the end of the night, Mark practically ran out the door, leaving me feeling like a deflated balloon. The story repeated itself with a few unfortunate guys after that. Each time I brought someone home, Mom would turn into a master of backhanded compliments and subtle digs. My self-confidence took a nosedive, and any potential relationship fizzled out faster than a wet firecracker. 18. The age of college applications, nervous goodbyes, and a fierce determination to break free from the suffocating grip of my childhood. Senior year became my mission control, a strategic plan to launch myself into a world where Mom's negativity couldn't reach me. College applications became my weapon of choice. I spent hours hunched over the kitchen table, pouring my heart and dreams onto those pristine white pages. Every acceptance letter was a victory, a tiny shard of hope chipping away at the wall Mom had built around me. Of course, she didn't make it easy. When I announced my acceptance to a university across the state, her reaction was a masterpiece of passive aggression. "Oh, Elena," she sighed, shaking her head. "So far away. How will we ever see each other?" It was a question loaded with guilt, but I wasn't falling for it anymore. "We can video chat, Mom," I said, my voice steady. "Besides, there are these things called airplanes." Alex, my ever-supportive anchor, was thrilled for me. "This is amazing, Elena," he beamed, pulling me into a tight hug. "I'm so proud of you." His words were a warm hug on a cold day. He may not have been my dad by blood, but he felt more like one than the man who walked out on us all those years ago. College was a revelation. Surrounded by people who didn't know my family history, I finally felt like I could breathe. I blossomed in a sea of new experiences, challenging myself academically and forging friendships that felt genuine and supportive. 27. The land of adulting, spreadsheets that never seemed to end, and a tiny apartment that felt like a palace compared to my cramped childhood bedroom. Life, for the most part, was good. My job as an economist kept my brain buzzing, and David, my amazing boyfriend for the past few years, brought a warmth and laughter into my life I hadn't known before. One evening, over takeout Thai food and a bottle of wine, David dropped a bombshell. "So," he said, looking at me with that goofy grin I adored, "I think it's time we met each other's parents." My stomach lurched. Meeting David's folks was easy, a breeze, even. They lived in a cozy house with a backyard that smelled like freshly cut grass, and they welcomed me with open arms. His mom, Sarah, practically smothered me in hugs, and his dad, Michael, spent the entire evening cracking jokes that had me snorting into my napkin. They were warm, funny, and genuinely interested in getting to know me. It felt normal, a word I never dared associate with family dinners in my past life. But the thought of David meeting my, well, interesting family filled me with dread. How could I explain the years of emotional neglect, the constant jabs, the suffocating negativity? I told him everything, the fights, the tears, the way Mom had chipped away at my self-esteem for years. Lily, unsurprisingly, hadn't gotten any better, now a master manipulator who knew exactly how to push my buttons. David listened patiently, his hand resting gently on mine. "Elena," he said firmly, "I'm marrying you, not your family. They may be baggage, but you're the prize." His words were a balm to my soul, a declaration of love that washed away years of doubt. Maybe, just maybe, I could finally build a happy family of my own, one filled with love, acceptance, and laughter, the kind of family I never had, but the kind I always deserved. My stomach twisted tighter than a pretzel as I dialed Alex's number. This was it. D-Day for breaking the news about David and the engagement. Hey, Elena. What's up? Alex's familiar voice boomed through the phone. Hey, Alex, I said, taking a deep breath. There's something I need to tell you. I launched into the story, spilling the beans about David, the proposal, and the upcoming wedding. There was a comfortable silence on the other end of the line, then a genuine laugh erupted. Elena, that's fantastic. I'm so happy for you both. His words washed over me like a warm wave, easing some of the anxiety knotting my insides. Listen, he continued. You gotta bring him over for dinner. Let me meet the guy who finally snagged you. David, bless his supportive heart, was all for it. So, a few weeks later, we found ourselves pulling up to my childhood home, a place that still held a strange mix of nostalgia and dread. Mom answered the door, her face breaking into a surprised smile. Elena, you came to visit? And who is this handsome fella? Mom, this is David, my fiance, I said, offering a tight smile. David stepped forward, extending a hand. It's a pleasure to meet you, Mrs. Turner. Mom beamed, shaking his hand a little too enthusiastically. The pleasure's all mine, dear. So, David, what do you do for a living? David, oblivious to the undercurrent of Mom's question, launched into a detailed explanation of his work as a director at a large company. Alex, ever the smooth operator, chimed in with jokes and stories, keeping the conversation flowing. Lily, of course, wasn't about to be outdone. She spent the entire meal batting her eyelashes at David, interrupting our conversations to pepper him with inane questions about his job and hobbies. Mom, ever the doting mother, fawned over Lily's every word, a stark contrast to the thinly veiled barbs she kept throwing my way. Elena, honey, she'd say, her voice dripping with fake sweetness. You really should take some fashion tips from Lily. That dress you're wearing, well, it's not exactly flattering. David, thankfully, seemed oblivious to the digs. But I knew exactly what Mom was doing. She was subtly putting me down, making me feel insecure right in front of my fiancé. The entire dinner felt like a twisted performance, a play where I was constantly reminded of how I wasn't good enough, not pretty enough, not successful enough. By the time dessert rolled around, I was ready to run screaming. As soon as it was polite, we made our excuses and left. The moment we were safely buckled into the car, David let out a long sigh. Your mom, she's a character, isn't she? He said, a hint of amusement in his voice. Yeah, I muttered, a wave of exhaustion washing over me. She can be. He squeezed my hand gently. But hey, we made it through dinner, right? He was right. We had. And even with Mom's negativity hanging in the air like a bad smell, the simple act of holding David's hand filled me with a sense of strength and purpose. This was my future, a future I was building with him, not with my dysfunctional family. The warm glow of post-dinner satisfaction lingered in the air as David and I curled up on the couch, poring over wedding magazines. We envisioned a small, intimate ceremony in a charming vineyard, surrounded by the people who loved and supported us. It was perfect. Then, the next morning, the dream shattered into a million pieces. My phone buzzed with David's name, his usual cheerful ringtone replaced by a ringing that sent a shiver down my spine. Elena, he said, his voice tight with a mix of anger and disbelief. We have a problem. My stomach lurched. What's wrong? He took a deep breath. Your mom. The blood drained from my face. What did she do this time? David explained, his words hitting me like punches. Mom, the ever-reliable manipulator, had somehow unearthed his work phone number. And instead of a congratulatory call, she'd unleashed a verbal tirade that would make a sailor blush. Apparently, in her twisted world, I was the epitome of inadequacy, ugly, dull, and lacking any social graces. It didn't stop there. She'd even dragged Dad into it, dredging up his abandonment years ago like a weapon. But the piece de resistance? She'd suggested David ditch me and turn his sights on Lily, claiming my younger sister was the epitome of beauty and brains. Fury boiled up inside me, a hot, venomous rage. How dare she? How dare she try to sabotage my happiness yet again? David, bless his heart, was furious too. But he channeled his anger into something unexpected, a plan. A crazy, audacious plan that was equal parts risky and thrilling. We expose her, he said, his jaw clenched. We set a trap. The plan was audacious in its simplicity. David would call Mom back, pretend to be swayed by her words, and arrange a meeting to discuss this ludicrous proposal. His goal is to record this entire conversation on his phone. David made the call, his voice smooth and convincing. Mom, completely oblivious to the web she was about to walk into, readily agreed to meet him for coffee. A nervous laugh bubbled up from my chest. This was it. Operation Momzilla Takedown was a go. The outcome was uncertain, but one thing was clear: I wasn't going to let my mother dictate my future any longer. This time, the tables were turning, and I was ready to play for keeps. I decided to attend their meeting. The thought of confronting Mom, especially disguised as a stranger, sent shivers down my spine. But the anger simmering inside me, the anger at her constant negativity and her attempt to sabotage my happiness, was a powerful motivator. Back in my comfy jeans and a worn-out t-shirt, I slipped into a corner booth at a bustling cafe across the street from our designated meeting spot. Thick black glasses perched on my nose completed the disguise, transforming me into a nondescript observer. Butterflies danced a frenetic jig in my stomach as I watched Mom sashay into the cafe, a triumphant smile plastered on her face. She spotted David at the prearranged table in a private room, her smile widening further. This was it. Operation Momzilla Takedown was officially underway. David, bless his tech-savvy heart, had discreetly turned on the dictaphone on his phone. Me? Well, I heard their entire conversation in the immediate vicinity. Their conversation started innocently enough, David playing the part of the interested suitor. Then, Mom, completely ignoring his phone, launched into her diatribe. You know, David, she began, leaning in conspiratorially. Between you and me, Elena just isn't wife material. My blood ran cold. The woman who was supposed to be my mother, the woman who was supposed to love and support me, was bad-mouthing me to a complete stranger. She's, well, a bit simple, Mom continued, her voice laced with fake sympathy. Not very pretty either, if you know what I mean. David, to his credit, kept his face impassive, simply nodding along and murmuring noncommittal phrases. Inside, I knew he must be fuming. But Lily, Mom's voice dropped to a conspiratorial whisper. Now that's a girl with potential. Smart, beautiful, knows how to handle herself in society. The audacity of it all. Lily, with her airhead personality and complete lack of work ethic, was apparently the epitome of elegance and intelligence according to Mom. The conversation continued, a masterclass in manipulation and deceit. Mom, blinded by her own delusions, even confessed to never loving my stepfather, claiming she'd only married him for his money. The woman had no shame. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, Mom stood up, her face radiating self-satisfaction. Well, David, it was lovely meeting you. Think about what I said, she purred, patting his hand with a perfectly manicured nail. As she walked out of the cafe, I could only shake my head in disbelief. So, what now? I asked, my voice tight. David pulled me into a hug, his touch a source of comfort amidst the swirling storm of emotions. Now, he said, his voice firm, we expose her. The air crackled with tension as I walked into my childhood home that weekend. Mom's smile was a mile wide, radiating a smugness that set my teeth on edge. Elena, honey, you won't believe it, she gushed, the words tumbling out before I even had a chance to say hello. What's that, Mom? I asked, already bracing myself for a bombshell. David, she declared, her voice dripping with a sickening satisfaction. Decided to see reason. He's leaving you and marrying Lily. My heart did a little stutter, but I forced a smile. That's great, Mom. Really happy for them. My stepdad, bless his perpetually confused soul, cleared his throat. Leaving her? But I thought they were getting married? Lily, who had been lounging on the couch like a pampered cat, snorted a laugh. Apparently not, Dad. Elena just wasn't good enough for him, shocker. I ignored her snide remark, my eyes locked on Mom's triumphant face. It was showtime. Actually, Mom, I said, my voice surprisingly steady. David's right here. Just then, David walked in, a sly grin plastered on his face. His presence sent a collective gasp echoing through the room. Hi everyone, he said, his voice mild. Just in time for a little family fun. He pulled out his phone and pressed play. The room fell silent as Mom's voice, dripping with malice, filled the air. The conversation from the cafe played in its entirety, her diatribe about me, her praise for Lily, the shocking confession about my stepfather. The color drained from Mom's face with each passing sentence. Stepdad turned a shade of puce, his jaw slack with disbelief. As for Lily, her bravado crumbled, replaced by a terrified whimper. When the recording ended, a deathly silence descended upon the room. Then, my stepfather exploded. You lying, snake! He roared, his voice shaking with fury. You married me for money? All these years? Mom, for the first time in my life, looked genuinely lost. Tears welled up in her eyes, but they were overshadowed by the storm brewing in my stepfather's face. I want a divorce, he declared, his voice thick with anger. Get a lawyer. The room imploded. Mom and Lily burst into tears, their wails a cacophony of misery and self-pity. David, bless his heart, looked as comfortable as a fish out of water, caught in a hurricane. Amidst the chaos, I felt a strange sense of calm. The truth, ugly and raw, was finally out in the open. The years of unspoken hurt, the manipulation, the lies, it all spilled out, shattering the facade of our dysfunctional family. The following weeks were a blur of legalese, choked sobs from a stepdad, and icy stares from Lily whenever our paths crossed at the grocery store. Mom, the architect of this whole mess, retreated into a self-imposed social media blackout. As for me, I felt strangely hollow. The anger that had fueled me for so long was gone, leaving a gaping hole that needed filling. One sunny afternoon, David found me curled up on the couch, mindlessly flipping through wedding magazines that now seemed like dusty relics from a bygone era. Hey, he said, his voice laced with concern. You all right? I managed a weak smile. Yeah, just thinking. Everything just feels so different. He squeezed onto the couch beside me, pulling me into a hug. It is, he admitted. But hey, different can be good. A chance to start fresh, you know? His words were a gentle nudge in the right direction. Maybe he was right. Maybe the mom-shaped void in my life could be filled with something new, something exciting. A spark ignited in my chest. So, I said, a mischievous glint in my eyes. What do you say we do something crazy? David's eyebrows shot up. Crazy? Like what? How about a road trip? I suggested, a grin spreading across my face. Just us, a map, and the open road. No expectations, no timelines, just pure adventure. You had me at road trip, he declared. And so, our plans took a sharp turn. The meticulously planned vineyard ceremony morphed into a spontaneous cross-country adventure. We packed a beat-up camper van with essentials, copious snacks, a killer playlist, and a well-worn copy of On the Road, and hit the road with no destination in mind, only the promise of new experiences and shared memories. Fast forward a year, and David and I were standing at the altar, exchanging vows under a canopy of fragrant flowers. It wasn't the elaborate ceremony I'd once envisioned, but it was perfect. Instead of a disapproving mother, my stepdad, recently divorced and estranged from Lily, walked me down the aisle. The tears in his eyes were a mixture of pride and regret, and as he squeezed my hand, he muttered, You know, kiddo, I always knew you'd find your happily ever after. Life after the wedding settled into a comfortable rhythm. David and I built a life together, filled with laughter, love, and the occasional road trip adventure. My stepdad became a regular visitor, regaling us with stories from his travels and dropping not-so-subtle hints about wanting to be a grandpa. With a laugh, I'd reply, "Don't worry, you'll be the best grandpa ever."